Hi, welcome back to Talking with TACA. I'm happy you're here today. My name is Lisa Ackerman. I'm the Executive Director. Wanted to follow up and bring up a show that we get the question probably the most often. How do I start the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet? It comes up probably a dozen times a week in our support, at least in one city. We see it all the time, and today I'm going to walk you through and demystify that process of what the heck is my kid going to eat. And first, I always like to start off with, I'm a parent like you watching here today, and if there's a therapist or otherwise out there, thank you for checking in and seeing how we're doing things. That's my son Jeff on the screen, and he is a doll, but my credentials really are the last 15 years working with about 45,000 families, so I don't have an official degree in nutrition, or I'm not a doctor, but I definitely have parent-to-parent information that I want to share with you, and you can refer to your doctor for more information. So let's get started. So even though I already did a little disclaimer that I'm just a mom with stretch marks from 2 kids and 1 husband, I definitely want to make sure you, before implementing anything, work with your doctor and your team. Okay, so the agenda is quite lofty. I have lofty goals today, and I'm going to spend time with you to talk specifically on why the diet helps, how to start, what a menu looks like for the day when you take away gluten, casein, and soy, how to refine the diet and issues that you may need to consider, resources, and of course the closing and what the future has in store for people who go on this journey. So let's talk about why the diet helps. It's really straightforward. First, I think it's important to talk about the abbreviations I'm going to use throughout today. Gluten is the GF for free, casein, S for soy. So when I go GFCFSF, you know. The last one is egg-free. A lot of our folks also have challenges with eggs, and we're going to hit that one specifically today. So everything else free depends on the kid and the labs. And I always laugh, ollie, ollie, all come free, because we're always talking about free of everything. There is food besides cardboard our kids will be eating, I promise. So why do this diet? Well, in the data that we've looked at over the last 15 years, 85% of the kids living with autism that TACA is supporting respond positively to this diet. Some years it's a little higher, and some years it's a little lower, but it's never been below 80%. And there are plenty of studies. There's almost 70 studies right now sourcing how the diet helps children with autism, attention deficit disorder, and other serious issues. And really, food can really drive behavior. And so we have a link on the TACA website, and Kelby's been so great. My PowerPoint is available to any reviewer. You just need to email kwood@autism-live.com, and then that way you can get this, and all the links will be live, so you don't have to furiously write down these links. And what's really interesting about some of this research, and again, I'm kind of a geek in research, not a doctor, but a geek in it, where I spend a lot of time, is there's really definitive subtypes that are responding to this diet, and the research is becoming more and more clear as to what those subtypes are. So let's start off with the basics, and what is gluten? Gluten is a plant kingdom element. It's wheat, oats, barley, rye, triticale, spelt, and kamut. It's basically, there's a lot of derivatives of this as well. Your starches, your flavors, your vinegars, and sometimes these can be binders that are found in medications and vitamins. So you have to be really careful in identifying. Gluten is almost everywhere, and I remember when our doctor prescribed the gluten-free, casein-free diet 4,000 years ago. Well, no, actually it was, gosh, almost 17 years ago. We went through the aisles at the food store not knowing what gluten was. My husband and I turned over a loaf of Weber's bread and said, I wonder if gluten's in this. Well, of course it is. It's probably in about 80% of what you find in your local store. So this is one of the key elements to avoid. And I know now, just as a funny story and aside with my son Jeff, I went on the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet after getting on my knees praying to God, going, Dear God, help me understand how my kid is feeling and what I can do to help him. And lo and behold, into my 40s, I got blessed with a lot of food allergies. So I know how to eat gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free, but also feel a lot better for it. So A lot of people talk about it, not just movie stars. Casein. Casein is pretty much in your dairy aisle, excluding the eggs. Casein is milk, butter, cheese, yogurt, ice cream. What's so beautiful right now is there are so many different replacements to dairy. And we laugh at the office that we think cows' milk should be drank by baby cows. Not many other mammals out there are drinking other mammals' liquids. Even though we do nurse as babies, that's a great source of nutrition and a great source for families to feed their baby, plus convenient, much healthier too. We do have alternatives to milk that are actually tasty and aren't horrible and definitely don't have the side effects for a lot of our kiddos. One of the other things that we notice a lot with dairy is people with picky kids will supplement, excuse me, will supplement with Pediasure, and Pediasure is high caseinates in it. So you just want to make sure there are alternatives to meal replacers that are gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. If you want to find those out, you can look on the TACA website for the mailing list, or the shopping list, not the mailing list. That's silly. Soy, and why is it a problem? You know, it's interesting, early on, back in the 100 days ago when we started this diet, it was just gluten-free and casein-free. Soy became a problem for a lot of people because the molecular structure of soy is so similar to cow's milk and dairy, or caseinates. So it's interesting, soy for a lot of people is a problem. We don't know if it's the GMOs in the soy, or if it's just your body looks at it as very similar to casein. So I really recommend that people try to remove soy at least for 3 months as part of this process and reintroduce it back to see if it is an issue. For many families, I would say it's a large issue, and there are so many different alternatives to soy as well that are readily available. So you don't have to fall down on the floor and freak out. So the reason why a lot of people go on this diet, and the research goes into great detail, but I'll give you a Lisa summary of why people look at this diet, and it's really about a leaky gut. And that's not just a coined term that people like to talk about. It's actually proven in science today. So many of our children suffer from leaky guts, where their gut walls become more permeable and the food particles go through that wall. And that's not how the body should be processing the foods. So it can cause tremendous health issues, night wakenings, gas, constipation, alternating diarrhea. I can speak today. And all of the other issues that come with leaky gut and kids with autism. I could spend probably 4 days talking about this one idea. But I do want to point you to the research on the earlier part of the presentation that will help you understand why so many kids are facing gastrointestinal issues. Recent studies are roughly 80 to 85% of children on the spectrum suffer from severe gastrointestinal distress. Now you may think in your head, no, he poops, he does great, or she goes to the bathroom, has no problem. You may need to take a closer look just to verify, because your odds are in your court that you may have a child experiencing gastro distress and just are managing it. So let's talk more about that. So as we get to the beginning part of the discussion, I want to lay the foundation of where we're going to go next. I need a drink, sorry. We want to talk about the recipe for success. So this recipe for success is just going to give us 6 guiding points that I'm going to hit upon in the rest of the show today. Starting with this gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet, GFCFSF, removing food sensitivities and food allergens. That is super important. When my son was first tested for food allergies, he had 42 food allergies, including gluten, casein, and soy. There was not one product I could buy in the grocery store that would meet his dietary restrictions. So I had to make everything from scratch. It's important to know what those allergies are, address them, so you don't find yourself sabotaging what could be some really tremendous results with the diet. Almost always the kids on the spectrum have to be tested and evaluated for overgrowth of yeast, bacteria, or parasites. But one of the most common is yeast. It almost seems like every one of the kids I speak to, they have labs that come back, a comprehensive stool test demonstrating they have much higher levels of yeast in their stool. Now, mind you, all of us walk around with yeast in our body. It's just when it's an overabundance, percentage-wise over what it should be, that it causes negative behaviors, night wakenings, maniacal laughter when there's not something funny on TV or they're in the dark. It happens. So I really recommend to consider this in your recipe for success with your doctor in testing and treating any antifungals or bacterial issues with antibiotics or parasitic issues. And there are different things you can work with. The fourth and the fifth item, dietary supplements and also dietary enzymes, are really good tools. They're not in lieu of the diet, but yet they can be used to help augment and support the diet. And then finding a good MAPS doctor, I almost would suggest that's your step one. But for a lot of people, they can go through and start the diet on their own and then work through the process with their doctor and refinement based on allergies and other issues. So now that we laid out a foundation of how to be successful and why, let's talk about how to start this thing. There are a lot of key steps in getting this moving, and where do I start? There's a great article, and Mary TACA, Massachusetts, I think helped write this and wrote most of this, back in 2002, and it's a great article. It's 10 easy steps to going gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free over 10 weeks. So rather than diving in and going cold turkey and removing all gluten and casein and soy, you can do it over the 10-week period and do it in a way where it's not going to overwhelm and be too stressful. So I really recommend looking at this article. For example, week 1 or 2, remove all casein. Weeks 3 to 4, remove gluten. Weeks 5 to 6, remove soy. Weeks 7 to 8, refine and check and re-verify all food ingredients to make sure you're doing it correctly. Weeks 9 to 10, do an inventory of sugars, carbohydrates, and adjust other things to the diet. So it can be done. And we have a lot of families that have used this GFCFSF in 10 weeks process, and it does make it a more manageable process. So I really recommend starting there. When we talk about some of the other basics with the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet, there's a great store list on the TACA website that you can print out or use on your phone that will help you navigate the food aisles at Whole Foods, Mother Markets, or other health food stores, or your local grocery store. The stuff that I brought here with me today is all stuff I've picked up at my local grocery store. Who knew Bisquick has a gluten-free version? Just don't add dairy and you're all good. And even better, one of my favorite products is Udis. Now, we don't eat these things every day, but having Udis available and being able to have this for a birthday party in a quick pinch. These things, it says muffins, but they're really cupcakes, and they're pretty awesome. In fact, I challenge a lot of people who aren't eating the diet to try one of those and let me know how they like them, because they're pretty darn good. So there's a lot of things that you can get right at your store. In fact, my local Ralph's and Pavilions has 95% of what I need to buy on a regular basis, because they have a whole dedicated gluten-free, casein-free aisle, part of the aisle now, which is just crazy. When I first started, I always marveled that most of my food for my son came from Canada. It's thrilling to be able to just get in the car, drive a half a block or two. Don't judge me for driving, but I live in California, so it's like LA story. But I drive to the grocery store and marvel at the choices that I have for my family now that meet our allergy restrictions. So there's also a not acceptable ingredient list, because gluten, casein, and soy have many different aliases. And so what we've tried to do is make the good list and the no-go ingredient list. So you can print those two things out or use your smartphone to understand what is more acceptable for eating. We also have 3 other really great links. How to do the diet on a budget, what things you can do to cut costs and saving tips, and I'll go over some of those with you in this show segment. And doing the diet for a family of 4 for less than $320 a month. We have a meal plan, a shopping list, and recipe guide and how you can do it. Believe it or not, you can do it. And then of course there's so much more on the TACA website. It's extremely robust and it will address many other areas and issues that you may see in your autism journey on the diet. So let's now go back to allergies. A lot of people are facing allergies, gosh, I've only met a handful of kids, I think, with autism that didn't have 1, 2, 20, 30, 40, 50 food allergies. It's rare to find someone that doesn't have a food allergy. And there are different types of ways that you respond to allergies, not just the hives and the breathing and the coughing and blowing your nose types of allergies, but other types of intolerances. So a blood test is really important for identifying allergies, not the skin prick test. And the reason why the blood test, it looks at the intolerances and other ways that your immune system may be responding to different foods or the environment. There's a whole white paper you can read on this, and allergies is something we can spend hours just talking about. But there's some great ways you can go and get those labs done. I really recommend in this process, even though you did a medical test, allergy testing is not 100% accurate. It's important to keep a food journal. For example, some kids with autism have watermelon come back on their allergy a lot. Watermelon, one of the most benign foods out there. It's mostly water. Don't let the names apropos in this case. But what I would suggest is keep a food journal. So if there's something you suspect that perhaps your kid can have on a rotation basis or infrequent basis, like once a month or every 2 weeks, like something like watermelon, not gluten, casein, or soy, you can keep a food journal and see how your kid is responding to different ingredients. So let's start with the common substitutes. Holy guacamole, now that wheat is gone, let's talk about some of the flours and different things that we can do. I love tapioca and quinoa flour. That combination together, it's Wonder Powers Unite. It's really tasty and not so dense. There's sorghum, rice, corn, and corn flour. You want to make sure those are non-GMO and organic. Those are better choices. And then of course almond flours and other nut flours. So I find mixing flours and having multiple flours in I'm going to take a break. You don't have to play the thing. I just needed a drink, sorry. All right. What I find with these flours is sometimes taking a mix of the flours and maybe using a half a cup of sorghum and a half a cup of rice flour, organic rice flour. That's a great combination versus dealing with just one flour. It gives a good texture and taste. So there's some options for you. Now, one of the common allergens that's out there is eggs. A lot of people are allergic to chicken eggs, and what I would recommend is there's a lot of options. What a lot of people don't know is even though quail eggs and duck eggs look similar in the pan when you cook them or mix them in a recipe, their molecular structure is different than chicken eggs. So some people under doctor's supervision can try other types of eggs that are farm fresh or at your local food store. I had great luck with my local Asian food store to find some of these eggs that I've never seen or worked with before. Quail eggs are really small, so you use 4 small quail eggs to 1 chicken egg in every recipe, and duck eggs are a 1-to-1 ratio. But there are also other things, arrowroot with water, applesauce or pear sauce, flaxseed meal and water are also really great substitutions for eggs. You just have to make sure egg has some liquid and that helps the recipe mix. So if you're using a powdered base egg substitute, you may want to add a little more liquid in the process of baking. Yeast is also a problem for a lot of kids on the spectrum. My kids' allergies were always a 4+ in yeast. So there are different things that you can do to avoid yeast and still make good bread product or other recipes. And those are baking powder and, believe it or not, plain club soda. Who knew? So when starting the diet, what happens with kids on the spectrum and their parents is sometimes we get into a rut. I'm the anti-rut girl. If you have a habit that you do all the time, don't live with me, because I'll probably ask you to add variety or break you of those habits. Kids with autism, including my son, were very ritual-based. Food had to have the same color, texture, from the same manufacturer, or it wasn't going in his mouth. Rotation is a great way to not only address those ruts from a behavioral standpoint, but also, I think, for variety's sake, not just variety, but also preventing future food allergies. If you eat the same food over and over and over and over and over again, you could actually develop an intolerance to the food. There's research on that, so I really recommend, for a variety of reasons, to stay out of the rut zone, but also just to have variety in your kids' diet is really a better strategy, because there's no guarantee that fast food restaurant that they will only eat at will be in business for the next 100 years. It's just not possible. So let's talk what a menu looks like. A menu for the day. So you're nauseous, you're nervous, you want to fall over, this looks overwhelming. Let's demystify this process and start first with breakfast. There's so many choices. If you're lucky to be in a state with Trader Joe's or in the country, I love Trader Joe's. They have some great gluten-free, casein-free waffles that don't cost $4,000. And there's also, my husband, super sweet, I actually asked for a waffle maker. Go figure, girls and appliances and holidays. I did for Christmas, and I got a waffle maker. Love the thing. So we make fresh waffles all the time and then freeze the leftover batch. It's really handy to be able to make those and have those for later on. There's also a lot of gluten-free, casein-free pancakes. Go back to Trader Joe's. They've got a great one in the frozen aisle that you can unfreeze. 3 pancakes, be ready to go in about a couple minutes using a toaster oven. It's fantastic. Some of the other things, there's just so many different cereals when you walk down the food aisle now that are gluten-free and casein-free. We also make a lot of recommendations for using like diesel meats, scrambled eggs, French toast with gluten-free bread, and just a variety of other things that we can make. If there's a recipe that you want converted, reach out. We'll convert it for you. But there's a lot of ways. We've even made eggs Benedict, and that's also on the TACA website. So there's so many different ways to get around breakfast. There's even gluten-free oatmeal. And different varieties of things that we can do on the go. So don't be afraid of breakfast. Breakfast is probably the easiest way to start. In fact, there's no penalty to feed your child breakfast 3 times a day to get the diet started if that's what they really like. So we can get the diet started and off the ground as long as it's got some protein in there. Go ahead and start with that. I give you permission. Just don't stay there. Remember, no rut zone. So now let's tackle lunch. I love different lunches that are leftovers from the night before. My son loves it. I love it because it's fast and it's easy. There's so many different things that we can do to package it up and set it up and have them even heat it up. My son's school is so wonderful to work with. They'll allow us to keep stuff in the refrigerator or freezer, or just be aware of my son's food allergies and serve them like on taco day. They have spaghetti day and they have gluten-free pasta. Go Chargers! Anyways, so there's a lot of fun that we can do. I've given a lot of ideas from the standard peanut butter and jelly sandwiches just this time on gluten-free bread to hummus and vegetables, Shelton's hot dogs. There's even corn dogs that are out there and available in the Whole Foods freezer section, so go large. Now let's talk about what we do for dinner. Dinner can often be more of a challenge because, especially if you have other folks in the family, that are not gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free. Your kid's going to go, why can't I eat that? I find that it's just a better strategy to feed everyone a similar looking meal. So your kid with autism or food allergy challenges is not sitting there with the big sad face going, why can't I have what they're having? We really want to make it so everybody's enjoying. Maybe your son or daughter has a different bun that you made sloppy joes, and one's using one bun, one's using another. But it's really easy to make tasty meals, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward in today's show. So snacks, here's lots of snack ideas. There's just a tremendous plethora of opportunity now at every grocery store to buy pre-made snacks. I'm a big fan of healthy, homemade, and also more natural rather than more packaged processed food. But if you need to get started, you just need to get started. So here's some great choices, and then you can work towards that. What we find is once people get used to the gluten-free diet, and I know speaking from personal experience, it took a while to get used to. I really missed Cinnabons. I really missed ice cream. I really missed certain things that I was used to eating, and I had to get used to my new way of eating. So I started with some of the easy processed snacks, and then I moved towards some more of the natural snacks just to get me over the hump, or as a special treat, especially if you're in a class and they're doing a class party and they want to have similar snacks. There's a lot of choices there as well. So why don't we take a break? I'm talking away like going a million miles an hour before we get to refining the diet and tips. So I'm going to do the first break with a really great recipe. It's the fake macaroni and cheese. Get away from the blue box, get to healthy, and get to actually really yummy. So I hope you enjoy this first recipe.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hey, welcome back to Autism Live. We heard you. Everybody wants
macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, but we're going to make it allergy free. But here's what's the crazy part of this macaroni and cheese. It's actually healthy.
And it tastes good.
Yeah, it tastes really good.
That's the most important part.
So we're going to start. We got our water boiling. There's so many variations on the pasta. We're using today a corn pasta. We can verify with the manufacturer that we have a GMO-free product. So let's go ahead and put that in there.
Ooh,
and if you don't mind, stir that up
Sure.
for me, my friend.
Yeah, it's sticking a little bit to the bottom.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
We maybe add a little more high heat oil and spread that around again. One thing you gotta know about gluten-free pasta, if you overcook this, it becomes mush. Let's move this guy over to the other burner so you can see what I'm doing. And now we're gonna start with the old macaroni and cheese sauce. What's great is there's a lot of choices for different soups. And the way that I look at soups, and again, please follow the recipe on your screen right now. I don't like to measure very often. But what I like to use is a creamy butternut squash soup. So this soup is great because it adds a lot of flavor to the dish, but also gives people another serving of vegetables. With kids, we don't want to over season. Maybe with the adults, we can season some for the kids first, pull it out, serve them, and then add a little more, garlic powder or onion powder or other types of things into your dish. So the next most important thing on this recipe is we're going to add in a thickener and the faux cheese. Now some people like their sauce really thick, so you just add in more cornstarch or more arrowroot, so that's not a big deal. How's that doing? You think it's ready?
I think it's done.
Okay, so why don't we switch? I'll take that, you do that.
Okay.
And I'm going to strain this bad boy here. Here, let me turn that off.
Okay.
Or we're going to cause trouble again.
Trouble in Lisa's kitchen.
Yeah, no!
That's another show.
Don't, yeah, right? So I'm going to go ahead and get this all strained. It's a good consistency. So I'm going to check to make sure our pasta is cooked. So really you just want to make sure, just like any pasta, it's a little bit squeezy, a little bit. Nice. Dude, good job.
Yay.
We're good.
It looks yummy.
So even though the cheese is not totally melted, it's okay, don't panic. What's important is that you're going to love this recipe once you eat it. What I enjoy most about this recipe is that it smells good, but this stuff is amazing. So if you don't mind, I'm going to serve you some up, and you can maybe blow a little bit on it so you don't burn your mouth. Sorry, I'm once a mom, always a mom.
Just like we tell our kids.
I know, right?
Oh, but I can't wait. I'm excited.
So I'm going to give a shot of this too, but
oh my gosh, that is so good.
This is the ultimate comfort food. So
oh, it's so
isn't
good.
it good?
And I'm not just saying that. It is really good. It literally tastes like something our kids would really like, and that sweetness is really, really, really good.
So the bonus for us is that when we're serving this to our kids, they're actually getting a full serving of vegetables in this. So instead of just eating a bunch of carbs and worthless calories, you're actually getting some good stuff in this. And we'll be back next time. I hope you join us again here on Autism Live. We're really loving the feedback, and if you have additional feedback, here's how you get it to us. You can send it to us via email at autismlive@gmail.com. On Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And also there's thousands of recipes waiting for you to discover them with pictures and different things on the TACA website. So you can hit TACA on the web, tacanow.org, and we'll be back. Hopefully we'll get to do this again.
I had so much fun.
Maybe we'll have a little wine, but you got to join us next time. We'll look forward to seeing you then.
Bye guys, we're going to keep eating.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get.
Hi, welcome back. I love working with Kristen Selby Gonzalez at Autism Hope Alliance. She makes a great slave in the kitchen. It's such an easy recipe, so I hope you get an opportunity to try it. Also, just a shout out to Autism Live for having those cooking classes. We're trying to get those back online so we can feature more recipes. So if you have like a favorite recipe or something you really love, or you just need help converting, email me, lisa@tacanow, TACANOW.org, and let me know what the recipe is, and we'll see about converting it for you. It's one of my hobbies to make challenges. So let's talk about finishing out. We've got 2 more segments today for the show on the gluten-free, casein-free diet. Don't be afraid, let's get it going. I want to talk about refining the diet and tips you can take. One of the things that I see in common with a lot of kids on the spectrum is a lot of things that they're eating aren't necessarily good quality food choices. You know, soda and chips and cupcakes and cake aren't always the greatest food sources for healthy brains, healthy nutrition, and life. So we want to be sneaky, and I'm talking really sneaky. My son early on would only eat a certain fast food provider's chicken nuggets, and literally that's the only ones he would eat and the only protein he would eat. So I would drive every day, go get him the chicken nuggets and come back. I got so tired doing this, I went to the store manager of to be named fast food restaurant, and I begged the general manager to give me 10 bags and boxes for their chicken nuggets. Explained my story. He felt so sorry for me because I started crying. Go figure. Pretty tough. Well, anyways, long story short, I went home with the boxes and the bags. So for a couple of weeks, as I experimented making chicken nuggets at home, I made chicken nuggets, and I know I'm a cheater McFleeter. I would put my homemade chicken nuggets in the box and the bag, walk outside the garage and pretend I walked in and brought the food in to be sneaky and fake my kid out. So be evil, be sneaky, you can do it, because our goal is good, healthy nutrition. So some of the things that we can do, I'm a big fan of cookies with low sugar, low carbohydrates. There's a lot of different cookies on the TACA website that get that objective. Same thing with muffins. But also meat puffs. When you ask, you're going, what the hell is a meat puff? Well, a meat puff is, it's almost, the way that I made it for my son was small hands, small fingers. It looked like the shape of a sushi roll. And I would just basically take meat that was ground, boiled, and then I added some starch, some egg or egg replacers, salt and pepper, and vegetables. And I started first with yellow crookneck squash. I grated the first layer of skin off the squash, and then I finally grated the yellow squash. And I grated it in the food processor, so it bounded really good to the meat puff. I put it in cookies, I put it in muffins, and I put it in those meat puffs. And meat puffs could be chicken, pork, turkey, beef. I've done ostrich, buffalo, you name it. I've made a puff out of it. So the point being is there's a lot of ways to be sneaky in kids that won't eat a vegetable or a fruit. I've made fruit cookies, I've made fruit muffins, and I haven't made a fruit meat puff yet, but that I do on the vegetable side. But it's very easy to take these different strategies. And EFAs are essential fatty acids or protein powders. So if your child is not eating protein, there's an easy way to sneak in like a pea protein from Kirkman Labs. You can sneak that in and add extra protein to any recipe. And there are certain things that before you add powders into something that you bake or cook, make sure you read the label. The label will tell you if it can go up to a certain temperature or not. So it's important before you add those things, you look at it. And for kids on the spectrum, especially our young ones, we want to think of adding and changing dietary restrictions almost like Gerber graduates, where we take the very pureed fruit or vegetable, then we start adding chunkies to it, then it gets really chunky, and then it's the fruit or the vegetable in its native habitat or form. Think of it that way as you're looking to graduate kids from eating baby food to regular foods we know and love from the grocery store. And you got to think about shapes, sizes, colors that your kid likes. It's really important to try to trick them out and make new things and crash and burn 20 times before you get it right. Maybe you can share with the lesser picky kids in your family. So my husband would come home, honey, I made you a bunch of chicken. Jeff didn't like it. No! So he ate it. So God bless him for eating all the rejects that Jeff didn't like early in the days. And when you're baking, like the muffin or the cookie, adding extra eggs, protein powder, nut flours, flaxseed meal, those are all great things that you can do. Flaxseed meal is so much great stuff for helping poop and constipation. So I really recommend looking at those things. So you've got to be sneaky. Put on your sneaky hat and get ready to crack the code. Take pictures, measure, look at the color, smell it. Look at it the way your kid does and see if you can fake them out and get a more nutritional replacement in that. It can be done. I can trust you. And eating on the go is also part of the challenges, especially getting your kid out the door to school, summer camp, social skills, or just out of the house because you're tired of being in the house. There are a lot of different things that you can do that are BPA-free, plastic-free, maybe glass, but with a plastic shell around the outside, so if it drops or when it drops, it doesn't shatter into 5,000 pieces. I even had that refrigerator that plugged into the back of my car. So if I knew I was going to go and see my son and he needed something cold 4 hours from now, and we were all over the place doing things, I had the little refrigerator in the back of the car that was on the cigarette adapter that worked really great. So there's different varieties. Before my son could have any meal made by a restaurant, we had to deal with his overall health, and it was a mess. So I used to pack a blue cooler before we would ever trust a restaurant or eat out as a family to prepare my son's food. So it was every time we went somewhere, there was the blue cooler, and it had his meal ready to go. Especially since early on in the early days with my guy, he was much more affected. Couldn't wait for a waiter to bring the food, so it was nice to be able to feed him in pieces before our food came. And then that way he was more content and the food was allergy friendly. But slowly but surely, dealing with the massive health issues that he was experiencing, we got a lot of those allergies cleared up. He's down to 7 food allergies today. And enjoying a lot more variety in what's available outside in the world that mom didn't make. So it does get better, I can promise you. So besides being on the go, we need to travel. We travel all over as a family, try to get out and about. You may have to travel to see an expert that is 4 states away or half the world away. Here's some great ideas for traveling. I always call ahead to the hotel or family and friends that live by the place that I'm visiting and ask them if they would be willing to store a box of food or put it in their freezer before our arrival. You'd be surprised at how many people are willing to do that for you, to be assisting you in the process of traveling and getting either help or a vacation. So often I've sent food in advance of our trip, or it's simple old Google and figure out where the nearest Whole Foods was around a location. That seems to work as well. So you definitely can do that. People are more amenable to work with you. A lot of times finding that Whole Foods, I'd shop the day I arrived. I would have staples on hand in the blue cooler. Once again, I have, I think, 4 different sized blue coolers. Don't know why they're all blue. Maybe for Blue Boy, I don't know. But maybe I like the color blue, even though this is purple. But you know, the point being is it's nice to have a bunch of staples on hand. So when you're on the plane or in the car, having a big bag of stuff ready to go to hold you over because of delays, etc., is a good idea. We already talked about Cooler City and my obsession with the color blue. There is also a list of gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free restaurant folks like P.F. Chang's, Chipotle, Pyology, different restaurants across the United States that offer menu choices. So you can go to the TACA website and figure out which ones are flexible in that area. And they really can do a really good job for you. Even talking to the hotel catering manager, it may make a big difference having that phone call prior to your arrival that you have a person in your family that needs more attention on their food product. So instead of traveling and travel in cooler land, I want to share some really easy tips on cooking in bulk. There are many times that I watched late night TV preparing a week's worth of food in advance and did that on a Friday night, Saturday, or Sunday, where I would just prepare 4 batches of the favorite foods and freeze them in bulk. And I would quadruple. Anytime I would make something from scratch, I'd automatically quadruple it after I tried and true, perfected it. And then I'd freeze in individual baggies, large glass containers with labels, and I'd preheat and serve it up with a toaster oven. So like the night before, if I knew my kid was going to eat my gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free chicken nuggets, and they're frozen in the freezer in little baggies, I would take them out the night before, put them in the refrigerator, they would defrost overnight, and lo and behold, they would be ready to go in about 10 minutes in the toaster oven on warm, and they would turn out great, and they'd be great for lunch or great for that meal. And be really aware of preservative-free meats or gluten-free breads that are store-bought or at friendly bakeries that follow the diet. These things go bad pretty quickly. Gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free cakes, cupcakes, breads don't last like the commercial grade breads because there are no preservatives in them. That's a good thing. We don't need preservatives. But just be aware they don't have a longer shelf life. So I would prefer and also recommend that you, when you make a loaf of bread, slice it up, freeze half of it, and then take it out of the freezer as you need it, because it will go bad pretty quickly. Same thing with preservative-free meats. So we already talked about this, about foods you can buy in the store. There's over 1,000 items and ingredients that are pretty standard that you can buy in the store. I brought some of them with me here today. Lots of food choices. Not that I use all of these things every day, but they're great for when you want to make something or do something for your kid. We talked about early where to eat out when you need a flip and break. I understand that, and an adult beverage and have someone else drive you home. Totally get it. Not Judgy McJudgerson here. We definitely have a list of restaurants that you can trust and talk to the general manager if you want to just verify ahead of time. Pretty much anywhere. Disney is such a great place to go. It may take a little bit longer, but they do a great job at meeting any dietary restriction. I'm really, really lucky And knowing that in Southern California you go to Disneyland a lot and are able to eat foods out and they taste good. I want to hit next. I think picky eaters is probably one of the top 10 questions that I get working at TACA. Last year we provided over 30,000 incidents of support through email, phone, and live chat. And picky eaters came up very often. I have a kid that won't eat foods, won't eat variety, likes sameness, is rigid, only wants certain specific brands, won't eat protein. I hit it a little bit earlier that the rut zone is you just got to put a red X over the rut zone and not fall into it, especially if you're listening to this show and you have a younger kid. Let's not start with ruts. Let's mix it up from day one. But if you've got a 14-year-old, we can do this. Hey, if you have a 32-year-old, we can do this. We can break ruts out. And there's a whole strategy. I worked with an occupational therapist to develop this strategy when my kid only ate 4 foods. And those 4 foods were very specific to brand, color, texture, taste, everything. And that's not a way to live. There's more to life than 4 foods, and plus that's really hard to keep good nutrition if you're eating just 4 foods, especially the foods he was eating. And the one thing that I do remember, Jeff was so sensitive early on. I would sit down at the table, he'd be right here next to me, and I would be eating a salad for dinner. He would throw up because it was just too much sensory-wise for him to deal with all of the stuff that was happening right next door to him. So I get picky. This took 6 months to introduce a new food for my guy. And the first food that we introduced was peas. I was dead set on getting him to eat something green, so I figured, hey, why not start with peas? 6 months. 6 months, probably pounds and pounds of peas thrown away, or I ate them, or my poor husband ate them. My daughter wouldn't eat them. She got sick of them. But the point being is we have to remember how our kids perceive this and address this from a behavioral way. We can start first in the whole process in desensitizing. I really recommend the kids get in the kitchen and help you. I recommend they get around food where you give them a job and they have to wash the peas. Or if they're frozen, they get them out of the freezer. They can play with them a little bit and help you cook them, put them in the pot, turn on the stove, get them excited about working with the food. If they get familiar with working with the food, they're going to be more likely to not be so adamant against the food. But it's really important. There's a step-by-step, and again, picky eaters, if it's important to you, I can walk you through this process. Just email me, Lisa at TACA Now. We could do a show just on picky food eaters if you want, but there's actually a whole white paper on how to do it. Now my son eats everything. He eats salsa, salad, healthy stuff, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, including barbecued meats where he was anti-protein. So there's a lot of hope for families out there that are watching me today that you can get over the picky eater syndrome. It will work. All right, so let's talk about other issues for picky eaters. For example, it was interesting, my son was really addicted to carbs and only ate carbs and didn't want any protein. Well, it turned out in his laboratory testing, he was really low in zinc. So we had to add zinc supplements, and introducing meats through meat puffs was something he could do. But we had to really take a step back and look at what he was eating and why he was refusing foods. Now, everyone needs protein. I don't care if you're a vegetarian, you need some sort of protein out there, and there are foods rich in protein, not just animal proteins, but other types. It's really interesting. There's a lot of research behind this particular area. I'm not going to cite that research. It's on the website. But for a lot of kids who are limiting no protein, have your kids' zinc levels tested. And it's been interesting how many families have come back with positives on low zinc, supplemented with zinc, started to see a kid eating more protein. And with kids with extreme sensitivity, like my son Jeff, who used to throw up when I ate a salad sitting next to him, I worked with my occupational therapist and feeding therapist and getting him to eat more foods and following that step-by-step guide on the picky kids eating. And again, I can't beat this horse to death enough on the behavioral rut. If you find your life and your kid is eating the same foods over and over again, it's time to break that, because nutritionally, variety is important. Also, expanding the diet is important, and if only those foods that they eat are available all the time whenever they want, there's no reason for them to make a change. So you got to slowly break that habit. And I'm talking to parents out there that feed their kid the same thing day in, day out. It's really important to try to break that. Life doesn't work that way, not just food, but in life in general, we have to have flexibility. Let's start with food, and it can be done. I can tell you, my kid for, I think it was a 2-year period, ate 4 foods. We were able to break that habit, get out of the rut, and now he eats whatever we're eating, and a great variety and healthy. So a lot of people think of gluten-free as cardboard, and it's not. There are really great ways to make gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free dinners. And what we want to make is edible dinners. It would be nice to make just one, recipe rather than 2 separate meals for everyone in the family, and really go back to the basics, what Grandma used to make. Meat and potatoes, meat and rice. There's even great pastas now, but the trick to gluten-free pasta is to not overcook it. It becomes wallpaper paste when you do that. So with gluten-free pastas, go al dente, maybe shave a minute or 2 off of the recipe or test it before you take it off, but never ever overcook pastas. But the pastas, I find, I make pasta now for house guests that come over. It's gluten-free, so is the sauce, and dairy-free and all those other frees. They don't miss anything. I mean, yeah, we miss the garlic bread a little bit, but I've got a trick for that as well. So I really recommend that you can make edible meals on the TACA website, especially a Pinterest page. Holly, one of our TACA peeps, has just done a great job. Her whole life was catering. Her recipes are flawless and gorgeous and yummy as all get out. There's also some of the cheetah recipes up that we've done with our picky son, Jeff. So let's talk about tips and tricks for success to get the diet off the ground. Step 1, really forget cheese, pizzas, and breads for a little bit, just a little bit, maybe even the first week or first few months, because there really is a definitive difference in the structure and the taste and the texture. For some kids, it's just too hard to get over that. Some people can do it right away, and some people need a little bit more time before they make those changes. Mixes are a beautiful thing when you get started. I love Bisquick gluten-free. It's fantastic. We don't use it all the time. It's probably twice a year now, but it's handy, and it does make a good quality product. In fact, a lot of people who come over and eat don't know they're eating gluten-free. Who knew? Pre-packaged items are also a beautiful thing. They are more expensive, but you can start there just to get the diet off the ground. And once you bake and get the hang of things, and get the recipe right, or the color and the texture right, or whatever that your kid likes right, it's going to get easier. The diet itself will get easier. So just know those are the 4 quick tips for success. So the one thing I always like to make sure when I talk about with families is money should not be an issue. I think it was about 8 years ago, we created the On the Budget series. We have a medical, biomedical on a budget. We have therapy on a budget. We have diet on a budget. We have all different budgetary constraints that you could be challenged with on the autism world, but the money should not be an issue when it comes to feeding your family. So we have a list of low-cost services, and even for families watching this on food stamps, we've done it with food stamps. So I encourage you to not use money as an issue unless you're buying a lot of prepackaged food, because this is over $5. This, I think, is $6 or $7 depending upon what store you buy it. And you may get it on sale for $5 at one point in time. But the point I'm trying to make is anything that's prepackaged and or ready baked is going to be more expensive. Anything that's raw ingredients that you cook at home will always be cheaper. So So let's talk about specific cost-saving strategies that you can do. Learn to cook. I know you may be allergic or you just got hives to that strategy that I just said, those words. But listen, if we're moving mountains for our kids, we're taking them to therapy, we're driving all over every place, we're working on social skills, work on food. Food is the biggest gift we can give our kids. It's not gonna be a huge sacrifice to make your kid food. I know it's time consuming. I know you're busy. I know it's a ginormous pain, but it's going to be the best thing for your kid and for your family. I find that families that eat dinner together stay together. They stay bonded and bounded more frequently by having a meal, breaking gluten-free bread. So really, please learn to cook. Other cost-saving strategies are buying and cooking non-specialty items. So again, like your own muffins, your own cupcakes, your own meatloaves or chicken fingers. Buying in bulk. Bulk is also a great way of doing it. Often Amazon.com can be your favorite friend because they may have sales on cases of food that are a lot cheaper than buying an individual box of food. So check the pricing on Amazon.com for favorites once you find new favorites, and then buy in bulk. It's just going to be much cheaper, free shipping. And cut out the middleman. A lot of people will buy direct and look for, on Google, find specials with manufacturers based on what's in the store versus the markup versus buying in direct. Trader Joe's locally, for the states that have Trader Joe's, it's definitely the cheapest grocery store out there. And I know that you want to definitely buy everything that your family needs, but it's sometimes better to buy on sale in bulk. A lot of families will join a co-op or buy at the local farmers market for a lot of their staples, and we'll find that they'll get a better price going that way. And write off on your taxes. What I really want to remind families is that if your child has an allergy to a particular food, and you've got to buy food that's more expensive. So for example, the gluten-free, casein-free loaf of bread and the regular gluten-full and casein-full bread is $1.50 difference or $2 difference. You can write off the $2 by working with your tax accountant and the taxes preparation. I'm not an accountant, but there are a lot of families that are spending a large amount, especially when they have multiple kids on the spectrum or multiple people in the family with allergies. You can write it off if it's been prescribed by your doctors. And we have a whole analysis from Gina Levy, TACA family mom. She's a CPA and wrote how you can do that. But you definitely want to print it out and talk to your tax preparer. And just remember, pre-packaged junk food is more expensive when it has gluten and when it doesn't have gluten. So if you can eliminate pre-packaged foods, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run for your family. So now let's talk troubleshooting. Gluten has a sneaky way, casein has a sneaky way of sneaking in to your family's life. So we want to talk about cross-contamination and just things to be aware of. And when you go gluten-free, casein-free in 10 weeks, we talk about this in detail. Making sure to have a different toaster or a different waffle iron. And your rule to follow would be if it goes in the dishwasher and you can wash it, that means you can share it. You can share it with the gluten-full or the gluten-free product. You can't share it on the same night, but it has to be cleaned in between. So for a toaster, we bought a toaster oven that we put a little Sharpie across it, Jeff food only. And next to it was another toaster that the rest of the family could use, and they were not allowed to cross-contaminate the foods. Sharing condiments is another way to do it. For example, mayonnaise, ketchup, peanut butter, jam, anything that you have in a jar. I would actually write on the lid Jeff only if you had to go into that jar. Or we just taught our daughter how to spoon it out. That way she would spoon it out, put it on her bread, for example, and she was able to share it too. Just some education back and forth with the family members as to what the right way to do. Lipstick and lip balm. Wheat-based lipsticks are really common. And I remember when Jeff first went on the diet, I thought he was so cute, kissing me a lot and staying on my lips for a while. And I'm like, well, why is he doing that? That's so awesome. Isn't he affectionate? Turns out my lipstick had wheat. And that's how he was getting my fix. Actually, with another family member, their daughter was so addicted to wheat, she was drinking the mother's foundation, her cosmetic, her makeup, and drinking it because it was a wheat-based foundation. I've had kids eat the wallpaper because the wallpaper was stuck to the wall with gluten. So there are different things that you've just got to be aware of your kids. If they're really hungry for gluten, they'll find it. You got to be careful as to what has it. So personal care products, creams, sunscreens, medications, spices. Medications, you just want to make sure you tell your pharmacy that your child has now been tested, found out they had an allergy, to make sure no medications are given to the child with certain food allergens, and you provide that to them ahead of time and they can help you. But also there are medications or over-the-counter product you can buy that can have it in as well. So you got to be very careful and read that information. And lastly, spices. Spices, it's interesting. I find that the cheaper store plain wrap spices actually have more fillers than the whole spice. So McCormick's has, and a lot of the organics that are out there, make sure that it's just 100% the spice and you'll be okay. So, sorry to say, is gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free enough? No, sorry. And again, you could do this over time. You want to remove the food allergies. I really recommend to remove all non-food items, artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners. Those can really step you up and knock you down in being successful on pursuing this diet. Also consider eliminating or at least decreasing the amount of refined sugars that your kid's eating. That can cause other issues. It's not that, you know, sugar is definitely gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free. But as you know, and I know, if you give a 2-year-old 5 candy bars, they're not going to be so compliant. Same thing with kids or adults on the spectrum. Giving them an overabundance of sugar can cause a lot of negative behaviors. For me, I get negative behaviors too. I start cussing, just kidding. There are also, we're going to hit on what other diets are out there in a little bit in a moment, but definitely consider if you've got a kid that has reoccurring constant yeast issues, there are some dietary interventions that can be legoed onto this diet that will help you define and also work with your doctor to lower carbohydrates and sugar so you can address some of the gut dysbiosis and other issues. So before we go to break, I want to talk about some words on organic foods. Back in the 70s, almost everything was organic. You know, there were pesticides were just starting to be publicly or commercially used in a much bigger way. Most of the foods I ate when I was younger were pesticide-free. Now there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different chemicals in our environment that weren't there 50, 20, 10, 15 years ago. The world has changed in a great way where chemicals are an overabundance. So I really recommend looking at organic food sources for your family. Again, buying in bulk, you can get some organic choices like bulk rice, bulk flours that are organic and much easier on the body. For example, some commercial grade rices are soaked in arsenic so the rats don't eat the rice. You shouldn't be eating arsenic. No one should be eating arsenic. There's arsenic in some commercial grade apple juices. So we want to be really careful, and organic is a great way to protect yourself from some of these chemicals. It's really sad that in the United States, in the commercial farming, about 50% of the meat we're eating on our table is filled with antibiotics, and that may be some of the reasons. Again, I'm hypothesizing, not a doctor or researcher, but that may be the reason why we have so many illnesses that don't respond to antibiotics. It's really kind of scary to know that 60% of the antibiotics given in the United States are to commercial grade farm animals. So organic protein sources are really important so you don't have the fillers and the antibiotics and other things, that additives we shouldn't be eating. So again, organic is a good choice. And chemicals like on apples and grapes and strawberries can really change behavior. I remember when I gave my son strawberries, he wasn't allergic to them. I accidentally bought some conventionally grown strawberries, and he was an animal. I couldn't get him to sleep, and I didn't know why, and I sleepily went down to the the kitchen after I finally got him to bed at 2 in the morning, and I saw the strawberries, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe that was why he didn't go to sleep. He was totally a wreck. I gave the strawberries to a neighbor. Sorry, I don't mean to poison you. Sorry, should I write a letter? I don't know. Anyways, but the point being is I went and bought the organic strawberries, and that was the only thing that I changed. That next night he went to sleep just fine. So again, watching out for chemicals and pesticides can be a big issue for kids on the spectrum, especially when it's again studied that 85% roughly of kids on the spectrum have gastrointestinal issues. So if they're back to that leaky gut, they have that permeable gut wall, those things are doing different things to kids on the spectrum. And just be note on cleaning products and personal care products, they can be extremely toxic. Some people who like to use those artificial air fresheners, or they have cleaning products that have a lot of chemical grade in there where you have to open every window once you spray your shower. Just be careful, those lingering chemicals can really affect kids on the spectrum more than it affects mom and dad. So just know they're extremely sensitive. And then next, GMOs. There's great, I think it was Oh No, GMOs, great documentary on GMOs, genetically modified organisms. In fact, my son wrote a paper on GMOs not too long ago. Anyways, GMOs, there are a lot of things that are genetically modified. Zucchini's been genetically modified. Certain mushrooms and other products have been genetically modified. But when we talk about genetically modified, I think the most dangerous genetically modified foods are the ones that have pesticides in the seed. So I'm not talking about the really unique squash that's been grown and it's a hybrid of 4 squashes. I'm talking about the seeds with the pesticides in it. So literally Whole Foods has an initiative to remove anything with GMOs in their store, I think by 2016. And they have a GMO initiative. There's a very distinct label to every packaged food to show if that's been GMO'd. The way to get around it for your fruits and vegetables is just to make sure you're buying organic. 9 is fine. So I really recommend that you look at the different labels and verify, and just even for your kid with autism, to please stay away from GMOs. So why don't we take a break? I've been talking like crazy, and before we go on that break, I'm going to do another recipe for you. And I remember this recipe came about with Jeff. He saw a pizza commercial for calzones, and he was like, that looks awesome. Mom, will you make me a calzone? I'm like, oh, for the love of George, not sure how I'm going to do it. So he jokingly called them pizzones once I make it, because it was different. It was pizza and calzone together. So Jeff has helped me create this recipe, excuse me. You can put vegetables in it. It's easy to do. But definitely enjoy the pizzone recipe a la Jeff. We'll see you back.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman with TACA. My
Hi.
guest here,
I am Jennifer Lucero with TACA.
TACA Mom is here in the house. Jeff saw on a TV commercial, they were making calzones, and he looked at me and goes, Mom, please make me that. Wait a minute, yeah, calzone, you can't have calzone. He goes, well, you make me pizza. Why don't we call it a pizzone? So we're going to do this ode to Jeff pizzone. So I'm going to have Jen come on in.
All right.
You're in charge. We're going to add a little grapeseed oil, garlic, cut up chicken, finely cut up onion, and we're going to throw a little bit of basil. So we're going to just take about 5 minutes or so, saute up the chicken and all of the onions together. While Jen is slaving away at the stove, I'm going to make the pizza crust. A lot of gluten-free choices that you have out there for pizza crust. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the dry. Again, I'm using eggs. There are a lot of egg replacers on the TACA website. We have about a dozen different ways to replace eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and add my shortening. Calls for a little extra salt, which I'm going to put in here. And also add a little pepper. And we also have herbs de Provence that gives the crust a nice Italian flavor. Can't forget the apple cider vinegar, organic stuff, ready to go. Yes, I have all my ingredients. We're ready to rock with this mixer. And don't be afraid of dough. Dough doesn't bite. So here's what we'll be working with to make the puzzone. I'm ready to go. Let's get this party started. So what we're going to do next is roll out the dough. I like to be rolling in the dough, but we're going to roll out the dough instead. So let's go ahead and get started here with that. So again, you see me using the parchment paper all the time. Love this stuff. It's basically unbleached, ready to go. It's just going to make life a lot easier on your rolling pin. You don't need to coat it or anything, which is a lot easier. But I swear I should buy that by the gross ton. So the puzzones, this basically makes 2 big puzzones. I'm going to take half of the dough and roll it out. Half of the other dough will be for the other puzzone that we're going to make in just a little bit. So you want to do, you're not making a pie crust, you're kind of making a long oval shape. So we're going to try to make a shape where I'm going to basically roll this over with all the yummy fillings. And so any combination or variation thereof, this sauce, just real simple, is organic crushed tomatoes. I've added a little bit of salt and pepper and herbs de Provence in that as well, which I love. I like extra fresh basil. That's always yummy to have on your puzzone. And thank you, this turned out fantastic. So we're just basically building it the way that we want to eat it. Of course, my favorite rice-free, organic, dairy-free, soy-free cheese. It's going to pop out the sides.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of popping out the sides. So that's the beauty of the parchment paper. Once you're done, you just flip it over and peel it back. So I'm just taking a fork now and going around the edges. It looks so pretty.
It looks really nice.
So for 400 degrees, we're going to go for about 25 minutes. You want it golden brown. And because we cooked everything pretty much already, you're not worried about not having everything fully cooked. So look how cute those look.
Looks great.
Like those 4 happy people right there. This weighs a ton. So let's go to the magic oven. Pull out our finished product. And voila!
Good.
Oh my gosh,
looks
this
beautiful.
is so yummy. There's nothing better than a little Jeff Ackerman puzzone.
Yeah.
And this is going to be nuclear hot, but we'll go ahead and cut it open so you can. Oh my gosh, this is going to taste so good
That
later
looks
on
great.
for your kids.
Yum.
Feedback, keep it coming. Thank you for helping, Jen.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us. Come back to Autism Live. We'll keep doing allergy-friendly cooking classes. If you have any suggestions or things that you would like to see us make, bring it on. You can reach us at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook.
Love the Facebook.
I know, too much for me. Facebook, so facebook.com/autismlive, or thousands of TACA recipes ready to go. Basically go to TACA now, TACANOW.org, and we'll see you next time.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild, let's get
Welcome back. I love those puzzones. In fact, maybe I'll go home and make some tonight. Poor guy hasn't had them in a while. Now we've got about 10-15 minutes more, and then I'm going to get to your questions. Definitely I have received some questions during the show today, so I look forward to going over those standard questions with you that we get all the time. Let's talk about some of the general resources. Autism Network for Dietary Intervention and Autism Research Institute have some great resources. On the TACA website as well, we have probably over 100 different resources for you on demystifying and finding tools and things that you need to start this diet. It's easy to get there. So let's talk about some good things from several different diets, like the GAPS diet or other things that are out there in the dietary world. And just to share with you, there's some really great things that we can do with regards to fermented foods and probiotics. These are just good things for, I think, anybody with a stomach and an intestinal tract. It just helps keep things moving, if you will, but also keeping the good flora in the gut happening for folks, and especially with kids on the spectrum. And these things can be a little bit tough to integrate in the diet, but it's really interesting. The first item on there, kombucha. Kombucha is in almost every health food store. It's in the refrigerated section, usually in glass, and it looks like it's gone bad because there are floaties in it. It's actually not bad. That's called a SCOBY. A SCOBY is basically how the product is made, fermented. And I remember the first time I opened kombucha, and this is when my son was 7, I think I first started giving him. And you only need a little bit every day, like 1 ounce of kombucha for the effect, especially on young kids. First time I opened the jar, took a sip, I thought it was food that had gone bad, and I re-looked at the expiration date, and it indeed wasn't bad. It's just a very interesting, fermented, almost carbonated taste. My son liked it because he missed having soda, and it gave him that soda-like taste. But what was so interesting with kombucha is it helped balance the alkaline in his gut. He was very acidic. And what kombucha does is balance the acidic ratio in the gut, and it's a natural thing that you can get. There are folks that even make it. I'm not that brave, but definitely I love kombucha. Now he drinks a couple ounces every day, so that jar that we get from Whole Foods will last about a week, and it just helps with balancing the gut. Another way to do that would be apple cider vinegar and manuka honey. I used to make shots for my son. Sounds funny, I know, young. Apple cider is a very, very, very strong vinegar, but that also has the ability to balance digestion and the alkaline in the gut as well. And I would line up 10 shot glasses, put a teaspoon of honey, a teaspoon of apple cider, and mix it up, put it in the freezer. Put those 10 shot glasses in the freezer, and the next day at breakfast time, I just pull out a shot glass, put it in front of him. It would get a little melted, not fully melted, and it had zero taste because it was frozen. So he wasn't responding negatively to the apple cider vinegar. You could also put apple cider vinegar in a tall glass of water, mix it with honey, and that tastes good as well. So these are just, again, sauerkraut, coconut kefir, or fermented vegetables. They're all really great things if over time you can get them to eat it. Most people with really, really, really picky kids start with coconut kefir or kombucha is the most tolerated, and then they work their way to those other things. But probiotics, every human with a stomach and an intestine should be on probiotics. I think our food and our sources have been so depleted in our environment that ways that we used to get natural probiotics in our food sources are just almost non-existent. And probiotics are so necessary for good gastrointestinal health. So good quality dairy-free probiotic, go to your health food store. They should always be in the refrigerator. That's a higher quality, more billions and billions. Some doctors recommend over 500 billion count of probiotic. Some good sources to talk to would be Kirkman Labs, Master Supplements, and also talking to the dedicated store representative at your Whole Foods or health food store to recommend a good quality dairy-free probiotic that's going to help. So those are some good things we can take from several different diets that are out there and definitely help with overall gastrointestinal health. When we talk about how TACA helps you, We already talked about that on the budget series. We have thousands of kid and family friendly recipes. Thanks to Autism Live, we've cooked some of them live for you, and they're now recorded up on the website. Or you can go to our Pinterest page on the TACA website and find thousands of different really great quality recipes that everybody will eat and be happy. We also help with guidance and resources and tips on how to. A lot of our TACA chapters will do actually store tours and walk you through, I didn't say star tours, not Disneyland, but store tours where we walk you through the store and point out foods that are decent and wonderful to eat. We also recommend and have tools for talking with teachers and aides and different people who work with our kids as to why they need to be on the diet, and also provide allergy avoidance support. So reach out to your TACA chapter or live chat or call us and we'll be happy to support you. Another main way we provide support for free is through TACA mentors, and I can't stress enough, if you're somewhere, as Shannon always says, that mom in Kansas City, and it's rural area 50 miles outside of the city, a mentor can be the most meaningful step where we match you one-to-one with someone that's nearby. That's a great way to get the support. You can apply for free. We will match you based on issues, age, and needs, and geography. Be sure to indicate that you want to have a mentor and experienced with a diet, whether it's gluten-free, casein-free, GAPS, specific carbohydrate, or a diet that your doctor just recommended, including ketogenic diets or other diets that are recommended for other issues like seizures. And here's the bonus, they care. They really care. They want you to be successful, and they can be that ear that you made 12 batches of gluten-free, casein-free chicken nuggets and not one has been eaten by the kid who's supposed to eat it. They can take you through that path and help you and guide you through the process. Some of these folks are best friends for life. So let's talk about some of the other issues to consider when you're starting this diet. Sometimes there are more issues, and we talked about foods that are not food, like artificial sweeteners, additives, flavoring. Some kids also have other sensitivities, and again, this is not to do day one, step one, but things to consider are the salicylates and phenols that some kids may be very sensitive to. There are ways to test to see if this kid or your kid has issues and need to be addressed, but here's a good example. Certain foods are high in phenols. For example, bananas. Let's say your kid eats 12 bananas a day and they laugh like Vincent Price in a horror movie at night with the lights off. Just a clue that you may have an issue with a food including phenols. Bananas, again, are really high in phenols. So the good rule to follow is, you know, if your kid is 4 years old, they shouldn't be eating 12 bananas a day. Perhaps we need to cut it down to half a banana or one banana a day. So if you see a kid jonesing a food product, I always think of suspect, and that we may need to look in this area or other areas for allergens and issues. So a big believer in kid-friendly, healthy foods, because any garbage in is garbage out when we deal with kids on the spectrum. So let's talk about these other diets. I mentioned things that are great from other diets like the GAPS diet or specific carbohydrate diet. There's many diets to choose from. In fact, TACA, we have a webinar coming up on what diets do what and why you choose them. I would really recommend to look at that, especially if you've been on the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet for, well, let's say 6 months, and you're just not seeing a benefit, and you're not overfeeding carbs and sugar and yeast, and you're eating real wonderful foods. It may be time to ratchet up and try another diet. What we have found is these diets are very specific to specific needs the child has. So I'm not going to go through each one of these today, but I would recommend before you abandon the GFCFSF diet completely is to consider labs and talking to a mentor and your doctor about how to Lego up based on your kid's unique needs. There are reasons why we choose one of these other diets. So you can attend the next TACA webinar that talks about all of these diets, or if requested here on Autism Live, I'd be happy to do that presentation as well. So let's talk about fast food. Fast food is not food. I often wonder when I go through, and you can pick any of the national chains, it doesn't make sense when it's on the dollar menu. It doesn't make sense that you can feed so many people with ingredients that don't really look like food, but they sure taste good going in. I really recommend educating yourself and maybe watching Fast Food Nation or Food Inc. On Netflix. It's a great way to understand commercial high revenue farming, staying away from drive-thrus. There's a few really good different locations. Like I love Wahoo's fish tacos, and I know they're only in, I think, 12 states right now. I hope there's one coming near you. I love the brown rice selections and the tacos. Those are all gluten-free, dairy-free, as long as you avoid the extra cheese or sour cream. There's Chipotle, Sharky's, In-N-Out Burger, Five Guys. You just get the hamburger protein style, so it's wrapped in lettuce, or bring your own bun from home. And then Whole Foods self-service. They're very clear at labeling the ingredients, and I haven't had issues at Whole Foods self-service. So change your paradigm with regards to fast food and save it for those days when you're close to a mental breakdown. Not every day. I know some kids living on the spectrum who've never had a meal outside a drive-thru. And to me, we have to break that habit. Those drive-thrus change. They don't necessarily stay in business for the next 100 years. So we definitely not only want to not get in that rut, but we want to also get to quality food and nutritional food, not the dollar menu. So fast food, my friends, is not always food. So let's talk about, we tell families and therapists and school teachers, we need to educate them. And the best way to do that is to say, hey, look, guess what? We just got our allergy panel back for our son or daughter, and guess what? Lots of food allergies. Who knew? So we're being directed by our doctor to pursue this diet. Just know that a little bit will hurt. Please only feed them the food from home. In many cases, you have to write that into your IEP and just spend time educating your teacher. I really recommend to just working and communicating with them and tell them behavior is greatly affected by food. We want them to have the best behavior. I'm going to work on it at home, feed them a high quality lunch and dinner. So I need your help making sure snacks and food reinforcers that are used here in the classroom are within the dietary parameters. It's really important, and it's very easy to do. You don't need to bring in the lab. You just need to write it into your IEP and also ask them to enforce it. Believe me, they're not going to give a kid that's anaphylactic a peanut butter sandwich if they're that allergic to nuts. Same thing with our kids. Even if it's a sensitive response or it's not a true allergy, they're just sensitive to that particular food. They're not going to violate. There's probably, if in a classroom of 20 kids, I would say half of those kids have food allergies these days. Wasn't the case when I was younger. Anyways, but you need to insist. It went so far one year, I won't say what teacher, what grade, but they continued to just say, oh, he can have that. And the aides that were working with Jeff always had to say, no, he couldn't. I had to go talk to the principal and the teacher and just say, look, I have to insist. If you give him something that's off his diet, it will affect him and he will have diarrhea for 3 days and not sleep. So I'd be happy to drop my son off at your house for those 3 days so you can take care of him. So go ahead and feed him that food. So needless to say, they never fed him any food but what was at home. So it's definitely, use the opportunity to educate, say you've done new allergy testing, and just encourage and make it easy for them to have food in the classroom for your kids so that you don't have the issues. So let's talk about some of the preferred food sources, and we're winding down. You can do this. Have a glass of wine. It's okay. Just don't drive. But we can do this together. That's why I like Mary's article, Gluten-Free, Casein-Free, Soy-Free in 10 weeks. We can do this over time. You don't have to overwhelm yourself. And you can start with some national online food vendors. My favorite is Amazon.com. My gosh, they should sponsor autism-live and me because I love them. But they also have almost everything that you would be looking for, whether your kid has 12 allergies or 2. You can find using their allergy food guide, where you can find foods that are without ingredients, specific ingredients. So I love Amazon.com. There's also Knick, that's that Canadian company where all my food used to come from, but they also now have national resources. You can buy it almost at every Whole Foods. But there's just a plethora. I love Bob's Red Mill, Energy, and other different websites that you can go through and get the foods. So let's go and close and wrap this up. Take a deep breath. This is stuff I've been doing 15 years. I got really good at it 6 months in. So give yourself a get out of coupon free when you make a mistake early on. It's okay, breathe. So let's talk about, in closing, what you need to do. For a lot of people, working with a physician is really important. Some people don't have access to a physician, but you want to discuss what diets would be best for your kid. You need to monitor their nutritional status, and you want mentors to augment what a doctor is already doing. So if you need help to make sure they're getting enough calories, you need help to make sure that you're avoiding all food allergens. I think there's just many ways to get this done on your own, but monitoring health status is important to have a good doctor on your team as well. And at TACA, really, we know this. It's 15 years of doing this, and food affects behavior. Absolutely, without question. And over 80%, we've never had a year less than 80% of children on the spectrum that respond positively to this diet. The diet for some kids does not have to be forever. They can return to a normal diet, whatever that is. I don't know anyone on a normal diet anymore. There seems to be someone, even my friends that don't have kids on the spectrum, have dietary issues and concerns. So I've learned to accommodate 15 different diets at my house. And know this, that I promise you, I've not had one kid starve in 15 years and gone on a food hiatus or strike. And allowing a strict dietary intervention for at least 6 months, preferably a year, what you'll see in your kid is something beautiful. They start eating a more wider variety of foods. We hear that all the time. You take away the food they were jonesing or eating constantly in that rut zone, and you introduce new foods, and they, lo and behold, start eating it. Well, the other residual side effects that you see too is behavior is better, sleep is better, poop is better, excuse me, and then learning is better. So I really recommend to at least give this a 6, please 12-month try, but minimal 6 to know if this is going to work. So let's talk about diet in the future. It should be noted that some kids don't have to be on this diet forever. A lot of kids that had gastrointestinal issues can heal their gut. I'll tell you right now, my 18-year-old son is still on this diet, and he reads packaging, he looks at food labels, he sees if he can have something on a particular item. He will tell you that I can't have gluten, casein, or he can now have soy, by the way. This has a little bit of soy, but not much. So he looks at it and can tell you he doesn't want to eat a particular item because it makes him feel terrible. So for my son, it may be lifelong, and he's okay with that because we've learned to make pizzones. But for other families, they've been able to heal the gut, get the kid in a good place behaviorally, academically, doing so much better. They're almost at a place where they're going to lose their diagnosis. They've been able to reintroduce the old foods. I consider this a victory every day that I look at the variety and how healthy my son is. He is at the right weight. He's doing physical activity every day. He's a 3.86 GPA with no curriculum modifications. He's doing phenomenal. But, you know, I consider a victory that he doesn't barf when we eat salad together. So it's a beautiful thing. So we're not looking back, we're just looking forward. The other things that I just want to remind you is to please remember a little bit hurts. If you're on the diet 6 days a week and off 1, you might as well not do it at all. And that doesn't mean that's a coupon to get out of jail. That means go all in or don't do it. And I really recommend, if we've got such high statistics of over 80%, right now 85% of the families that benefit from this diet, it's worthwhile to give it a shot. And enzymes are not the solution. Even though we've got great quality enzymes, and there are kids that are prescribed enzymes that have problems processing protein or problems processing sugars or carbohydrates or other things that are diagnosed medically. Enzymes are really helpful, but you don't give the poison with the antidote. That doesn't work. So enzymes should be an adjunct to the diet, not in replace of the diet. I have people that often will use enzymes if there's a dietary infraction where a kid accidentally gets something. Enzymes will help with the issue. So this is where I go and email me. If you have questions, definitely email me. If it's something I can't answer, I'll forward you to someone who can answer it. It may take me a few days to get back to you based on workload, but definitely we can guide and direct you. If you need online or ongoing help, let us connect you with a free mentor, because that will make this process less hectic. And really, food is really so important in our lives. We would crawl through broken glass for our kids. Let's just work on getting them healthy foods and nutrition as well, because that's such a big part of their autism journey, and food really affects behavior. And if you don't believe me, we'll go to the bar down the street, take 6 shots of liquor, and you can tell me how you feel about driving, which I wouldn't recommend. Anyways, all joking aside, it's really important to know that food is not love. Food is nutrition and life, and we need to feed our kids nutritional sources so they can be the best they can be. So hopefully I demystified the gluten-free, casein-free, soy-free diet. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate how much you love your kids. And we're going to take another break and come back with your questions. So we'll see you right back.
What would you do if your child was hurting?
If your family's future was uncertain.
If help seemed out of reach.
Have you been given no hope?
TACA means I am not alone in this.
This is the reality for families affected by autism. And today, the number of children with autism is growing more rapidly than ever. TACA unites these families and ensures that they do not have to fight this battle alone.
Our oldest son, Jared, who has autism, when we first took him to the doctor to get the diagnosis, you know, it's so sad because they offer you nothing. There's no help, there's no hope. One of the things that you learn with autism is being very grateful for even the small milestones. You know, when you first get the diagnosis, you go through all the range of emotions. You know, this can't be happening. Why is this happening? You have to get to a point where it's the emotion that has to be leading is, what can I do? The first thing that struck me was walking to a room and seeing, oh my gosh, we're not alone. And there is this very strong community that's already set. And something I still today associate with TACA the most is hope. To me, that's what TACA means. TACA means hope.
It's like you've got all these dreams and goals of what your son's going to do, and you get your diagnosis and you're sent home. And that's it. There's no plan of action. There's no, here's autism, here's what we're going to do to make your life better and help him. It's strictly go home and try to process it and go on the internet. It was devastating, and you just, you know, you go through this 3-week of depression, and then you snap out of it. You have to. And then you start making phone calls and trying to figure out what is autism and what are we going to do. And then we found TACA, and it was life-changing.
Autism, there really is no definitive answer. It is trying to find the resources that are out there that can assist you to help your child so that, you know, you just don't feel so helpless at those particular moments.
There was direction, and there was hope, and there was a little ray of sunshine that he's going to be okay, and we're going to be okay. I always look back and think we would never be where we are. Carson wouldn't be where he is at without TACA.
So 13 years ago, my son was diagnosed with autism, and that put our whole family into a tailspin. There were so many different ideas and things that were not proven. Nobody knew what guidance to give us. We had no direction. And then we found TACA. They helped give us a path to follow, help give our son a better future and make him healthy and put him back onto the road of recovery. When your son's first diagnosed, the first thing you hope for is, gosh, I just want my son to speak. I just want to be able to communicate with him in some way. Then you want a little more. You want him to go to a regular school. Then you want him to potentially have a real life and go to college. So you're always hoping for the future of your child. My son is a happy, healthy, vibrant young boy that's going to turn 15 really soon. And we couldn't be more pleased, and without TACA, I don't think we'd be in the place that we are today. We believe the future is not defined for many affected by autism. There is hope and direction for these kids and their families. TACA is dedicated to providing community, support, education, and hope to families affected by autism.
At TACA,
At TACA,
At TACA,
We are families with autism helping.
helping.
helping families.
helping families with autism.
Hi, my name is Matt. I am 19 years old and I was diagnosed with autism when I was 6 years old. Autism is one of the fastest growing developmental disabilities in the United States, but I am living proof that with the right treatment, hope is possible. My future is not limited. Today, I am attending Fullerton Community College and I run for the cross-country team for fun with my friends. It makes me feel proud when I think about my progress. Chances are you know someone affected by autism. Show them they are not alone and help others get on the road to recovery. Contribute to Talk About Curing Autism today.
Hi guys, welcome back. You're so brave. You can do this. And I've got some great questions. I'm going to answer some of the viewer questions and kind of really address some of the meat and potatoes, if you will, of the issues on starting the GFCFSF diet. Sarah asks, my kid is so picky, he only eats pizza, french fries, Milky Way candy bars, and drinks a gallon of milk every day. What do I do? Well, I would take the article, the How to Get Picky Kids to Eat off the TACA website and really work on that. First things first, do not defend that diet. That's not good nutrition for the brain, the gut, the body, and that's not going to help your kids. So I really think people who eat this way, not going to be healthy in the long run. So we have to break that habit and introduce real food. So I really recommend finding replacements. So finding a pizza replacement. Most French fries are gluten-free as long as the oil is not done with, let's say, wheat floured onion rings. There are candy bars that are different, that are dairy-free, and there are different milks. And I even started first, my son was addicted to milk. It was between a half gallon to a full gallon a day. I started first with the coconut milk, or rice or almond milk, and I took the gallon of milk that we had, poured out a quarter of it, replaced a little bit of the alternative milk, and then slowly over time that gallon container contained 100% coconut milk. And that was great. My son finally got used to the flavor, and I did it over a week, and it's something you can do. So first, refine food replacements for the favorites that your kid likes. And then really, really work hard on the Picky Kid protocol that we did in introducing new foods. So replacements, then to introduction. And over time, it will get easier. I promise you. I would say, I'm going to make a guess that it's probably almost 70% of the kids we work with are picky. So talk to your mentor, talk to folks at TACA, and we'll tell you some good replacements for your kids' favorite foods. So Kevin asked, will my kids starve? I can tell you honestly, there's not one kid in the 15 years that has starved, and I just want to reiterate that. If it's usually a 1 to 4 day acclimation, I have one kid that I can remember that ate potato chips for 3 days. And on the 4th day, they got really hungry. Mom just stuck to it. Dad stuck to it. So if you see something outside that where they're just not eating and they're lethargic, it's definitely time to go see a doctor. But I really have not run into, there's only one case where I've seen that happen, but the kid did not starve. By day 4, they were hungry and decided to give in and eat. Laura asks a good question. What if I'm feeding my kid the gluten-filled food, only on special occasions, like birthdays and holidays? No, don't do that, Laura. I'm asking you, a little bit, remember, hurts. So good ideas would be finding alternatives, bringing the food with you, storing it in the freezer at school, keeping it in the cupboard in the classroom for when those breakout parties happen at the last minute. It's really important to address that food memory. There's one study about inflammation in the brain, and if you have a child that's truly allergic, that inflammation lasts up to 9 months. So it's really important, if you know your kid is allergic to it or sensitive to it or does better without it, just to stay away from it, because a little bit will hurt. Got another question. She didn't want to share her name. She says, the grandparents love to feed the child, and they love to feed baked goods and everything that's not on the diet. First and foremost, explain to them that you need them to be on your team and that you want them to be an important part of a team member. And maybe they can, Grandma, if she likes to cook a lot, come over and work with you and crack the code on a really good cookie or muffin recipe, and have them be part of your team. And the other thing that I'd really recommend, if there's a favorite food your kid has, maybe offer it only when they're at Grandma and Grandpa's. So a specific cake or a specific recipe they really like. Leave that for special times with grandparents if they see them a lot. It's important to give your grandma and grandpa opportunity to be a big part of the team and tell them food's not love, and that if any of the grandkids had food allergies, we'd definitely want to be able to address them and give them love other ways. So that is a tough one. And there's one from Terry. Terry just wrote, my kid was given a cookie at school. What do I do now? Do I die? No, you definitely don't die. First, breathe. It's not your fault. It occasionally happens. Try activated charcoal or enzymes. Like I said, I love Enzymedica and Master Supplements. Kirkman Labs has a great enzyme as well. Have those on hand. Activated charcoal you can get at any health food store. That helps with mopping up the mess, if you will, in a non-tech term, with any type of food allergen and response. And enzymes will help digest the food. In fact, on the TACA website, there's a whole what to do in case your kid gets the wrong food by accident or infraction. So don't panic, Terry. It's all good in the hood. We can get through this together. Tom has written in, my spouse and I are now divorced and I want to do the gluten-free diet. Now what? This one is a tough one. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to lie. In fact, when we first started on the autism journey, my husband was the one that wanted to start the gluten-free, casein-free diet. And I felt, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? That's all he eats. He's going to die. He's going to starve. So we had to, even if you're married or you're in this situation, which I'm sorry, review the allergy panel with your doc and your spouse. Get them on board. Explain why the diet has a chance to help behavior. And really have an extra third party there. That will help. Then get a game plan. Like we did with the grandparents, it's that same old talk. Look, I need you on my team. Our kid's the most important thing to both of us. Let's do this together. I had another mom where the dad was resistant. So it goes both ways. It's not one group or another. She used to, on Dad's weekend, roll in a cooler with all the food and have it all ready to go. If they knew they were going to be out and about, they gave a restaurant list with the foods that the child could eat at the restaurant they were going to. So it made it really hard to cheat. So be united in health and united in the process of good nutrition. And you can do that with having a good third party help you along. Then we got another question from Mary. How do I do school parties? Well, Mary, I like goodies. Did I mention that I like goodies? This is great. I have a lot of people who keep this in the freezer at their school. So if there's a party, they can just pull it out of the freezer and be ready to go in a few minutes if you put it in the microwave or just let it defrost naturally. I know a lot of times I would talk to the teacher where they knew in the IEP my son had a lot of food allergies. They allowed me to bring a bag of food with baggies of prepackaged, ready-to-go food that was shelf-stable in the cupboard where they could grab something at any time. In fact, I let her know that use it for any kid in the classroom. It's okay. I'm okay with you doing that. So you can survive definitely school parties. I promise you, you can do it by just being a little more prepared and proactive and talking to the teacher and having stuff ready to go. Another really, really great question from Abigail. She just is like, oh my gosh, your presentation was huge. There's so much to do. I'm so afraid. What do I do? I need ongoing help. I encourage you to get a mentor. Get a TACA mentor, sign up. See if they'll do a store tour in your area. Talk to them about what your kid currently eats and help them understand what your issues are, and they can help you through this process. So don't be afraid. I think that 10 weeks to GFCFSF is really going to save you a lot of heartache. How you eat an elephant is a bite at a time. So you really just want to take the steps and be proactive. So these were great questions. I appreciate the time and know how dedicated you are to helping your kids stay healthy and get to better optimal health. So I know you can do it. Thousands of families have done it before, and I haven't looked back, and you won't either. You'll be blown away by the success and the new things that you'll see in your kid, plus sleep, better poop, better behavior, better learning. So dive in with both feet. You won't get hurt as long as you're in the deep end. All right, well, next time